Hello, beer lovers, and welcome to a new episode of The Tap, brought to you by Gravity Beverage. The Tap is a webcast that talks about all things beer with co-hosts Lee Neujahr and Joe Mentele.
Welcome to The Tap Brewcast with myself, Lee Neujahr, and Joe Mentele.
Hey.
And happy Friday. We got a big one here for you.
Yes, we do.
So it's raining outside here in Boise. The weather is dropping, the leaves are changing, and for some reason, part of my soul just wants something black and outrageous and rich to drink. So I thought it would be fun to talk about an old standby that I got really into when I first started drinking this style of beer, and that is Old Rasputin from North Coast Brewing Company in Fort Bragg, California. Take a bow. Rah, Rasputin, lover of these Russian beers. This is an awesome example of a really peculiar style that developed a century and a half ago or something like that.
This is a great fall beer, a great winter beer. This has been a favorite of mine for a long, long time. I go for the big, heavy stouts pretty often, and Old Rasputin's been one of my faves for years and years. I used to go for one called Old Peculiar, but I can't get that around here anymore. It was a nice, heavy, dark beer, and Old Rasputin stepped right in and took Old Peculiar's place.
Yeah, for me, this is probably the most reliable and affordable, widely available, and delicious for any Imperial Stout that you find out there. So if you're looking at exploring this style of beer and you're maybe not familiar with it, this is probably where you want to start. And it's probably good that we're drinking this on a Friday late afternoon, because this is a big boy. This is 9%. And I don't know if you noticed when I held up my can, but this comes in a 16-ounce can now.
Whoa.
So I'm debating whether or not I'm just going to house this whole thing to the dome. But I did get it a proper glass treatment with these little goblets thing.
Yes,
when you drink this style of beer, it is appropriate to pour it into a little goblet like this. And I happen to choose mine that has my full first name on it, Lee. So, you want to give this one a go and do some swirly-doos and talk about it?
Heck yeah, I want to. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't had an Old Rasputin in a while, and so I'm really going to enjoy this one. I've got my big tulip glass, too, that I got at the GABF a couple of years ago. I've been using this for almost everything. You know, American beer always calls for a shaker glass. It's like, what? No. So here's to you. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Man, we brought our A game with our glassware today. Nicely done.
Yeah, we did. I already opened mine.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll give it a little bit of room in the glass because I want that nose to kind of funnel into my olfactories.
Heck yeah. That's nice.
This is a crazy recipe for a beer. If you've never had an Imperial Stout before, it's usually between 8 and 12%, and it has a huge malt bill on it. What are some of the stuff that you would normally see on recipes for brewing an Imperial Stout?
Oh, you definitely see some roasted grains, some dark rye, pretty high roast. But on the spot, I really couldn't say because I haven't prepared for this at all.
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit, and I think some of those older recipes, it's almost always like heavy, dark, carbonized roasted barley. Like this is like the French roast of killed malts. You know, this one really takes it to the extreme. And you do actually kind of want some of those bitter notes, but then they kind of blend a few kind of medium roasted notes in there. And then when you put those two things together, you get these kind of dried fruit characteristics, which are really pleasant in the end. I mean, if it was just hammer home all of that dark stuff, this beer would probably taste like an ashtray, but you kind of use other things to kind of balance out those flavors. So, yeah, I mean, in this nose, I'm getting it smells like someone just concentrated a Guinness down into like 4 pints in this little thing right here. So yeah, a crazy like bittersweet cocoa thing going on.
That first sip was You get the really roasty, really heavy roastiness, but then it also kind of rounds out towards the end with a big kind of dark fruit sweetness that just balances out to where it's almost sweet but not quite, and it's really a nice balance and some great flavors going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, the bitterness is something that I forgot about with this beer. Of course, you're getting all those bitter notes from the malt, but looking up different versions of this style of beer, it's always really hoppy too. Like they're using somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5 pounds of hops per barrel, which is like IPA levels, And
but with all that malt, if they didn't, it would just be treacle. It'd be you. I'd still drink it, but it'd be pretty doggone sweet. Yeah.
This is a heavy beer.
Into heavy beers.
Yeah. So, I was looking up some of the original recipes for this style of beer from England. And some of these old gravities were like 1.107, 1.120. So some of them would some of these would end up in like the 12 to 14% range. And it kind of made me think about like who this was for. And there's a funny story about like who this beer was originally for and why it's called Imperial.
Yep. It was brewed for the court of Catherine the Great of Russia, who was really a fan of strong beers. And they came up with this beer for her and for her court. And it was an instant hit. And they requested, I don't know, probably some just ridiculously huge amount every year, and probably really put that brewery on the map. I don't know offhand what brewery it was that originally made it. I don't know if they really know, if anybody really knows. Did you see that anywhere in your research, Lee?
I did, yeah. Gosh, Beamish and Crawford is one of the original brewers that made it.
Beamish Stout, you can still get Beamish Stouts.
Yeah, St. James Gate Brewery.
Isn't that a Guinness brewery now, St. James Gate?
Yeah, it's saying it's also was something that was brewed by Guinness, which I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting to learn about that. I'm sure they could. I mean, they're the stout brewery in the world, so
I think they know how to make a stout. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
so. I mean, all deference to those dudes in Ireland who are just like rocking the stouts 24/7 over there. They probably know what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, you got to think about. The Imperial Court of Russia was probably really used to just drinking vodka all the time. Yeah. So something that could kind of stand up to that. I'm guessing that they were probably drinking this for lunch and dinner. This was like a daytime thing for people who just were bodily conditioned to accept vodka all the time.
Yeah, those guys probably tasted something like a Berliner Weisse and just were like, what's this? There's nothing here, Yeah. So after drinking vodka all day long, I mean, I went to Russia for work, and at the breakfast buffet, there was trays and trays of shot glasses and probably a dozen bottles of vodka in ice. And guy in front of me grabbed 3 shot glasses, just filled them all up with vodka. And this is like 8:00 in the morning. I'm having scrambled eggs, going,
Yeah, I guess Russia, you guys know how to party. I mean, you can trace that back at least that far to that Imperial Court. But it's kind of a style of beer that hasn't really hit in the United States until recently. So North Coast Brewery started back in 1988, and they were making this beer, I want to say maybe early to mid 90s. And it was just kind of like an in-house pub only kind of a thing. I mean, back then, the word craft beer was kind of a turnoff for people. It was kind of pretentious, and just the overall flavor profile just wasn't for everybody. So I can see why this beer took a while to catch on. And a lot of people aren't really used to drinking beer in like a sipping fashion like this.
Yeah. Could you imagine going from your favorite being Budweiser or Coors or something, and then somebody hands you one of these, maybe you'd have the lack of presence of mind to toss the whole thing back like it was a 3.8 for 4.2% American lager, and all of a sudden just be on your lips. I wonder.
Yeah, this is not a slammer. This is not a crusher. No. This is something that you can pair really nicely with heavy roasted vegetables or meats, or if you want to go like the chocolate or like kind of bitter, creamy cheese route pairs up really well with this kind of stuff. Toasted bread, obviously, but yeah, this is kind of something that you want to sit and sip and savor, have a cigar with it. I mean, there aren't too many beers that you can, absolutely appropriately have a cigar on the side, but the Imperial Russian Stout, man, this is crazy stuff.
I think this would stand up to a cigar for sure. It'd probably be fantastic with a really zingy blue cheese or Stilton, it'd probably be really good with something like that. And definitely with a chocolate, one of those chocolate cakes that are flourless.
Oh yeah, those are delicious. Those dense ones. Oh man, I'm all about that stuff.
yeah, I'd be just dipping it in this. That'd be good.
Yeah. So since this brewery has been making this style of beer, other American breweries have kind of caught on to the fact that like you can put all sorts of stuff in the style of beer to augment it. You can put it in other vessels to age it and turn it into something else. The most common being bourbon. But I mean, you take this beer and you take all those descriptor words, then you start coming up with things that what else tastes like roasty and toasty and bitter and sweet and fruity. And you think of all those things and then you're like, cool. I just thought of 5 different foods that I can toss into this beer to turn it into something bigger. And that's where we get these crazy, geeky Imperial Stout recipes that are out there these days.
Oh, yeah. This would be great with some, I don't know, some dates or something put in there or some kind of really dark flavored chocolate would be good for sure. Coffee and chocolate. I'd do that. I've made coffee chocolate stouts, and I thought they were great. I never made them as big and heavy as this, but I think all that would be really good with it. And of course, would go great, even with the chocolate in there, probably would still go great with a big old roasted chunk of beef, a big old steak or something.
Yeah, I had a buddy that I used to work with who told me that you can basically take 5 ingredients and throw it into this style of recipe of a beer, and you'll get, the nerds lining up around the block to come grab it. And he called that beer geek catnip, which I just thought was just so amazing. So, I mean, take a bow, maple, coffee, chocolate, coconut, or what was the last
vanilla?
one? Vanilla? Vanilla, thank you.
Vanilla, yeah.
Yeah, some of the highest rated beers on Beer Advocate is this style of beer with vanilla added. And like that just took over the world 5-6 years ago in like the high end beer world. If you had a stout that was like over 10% and you had not just vanilla beans, but a certain type of vanilla bean. If you said like Tahitian vanilla or Madagascar vanilla, and then if you put that and put it into a spirit barrel, like a rye whiskey barrel or a bourbon barrel, and you're guaranteed to get people to come visit you and take home cases of that. Yeah. So what this style of beer does for a brewery though is it really takes up a lot of space. It takes up a lot of time. There's a ton of ingredients that go into this style of beer. So it's kind of a testament to this brewery to have it in their rotation year round and still be successful about it. I mean, they must have a ton of space and a really dedicated crew to handle these giant grain outs and, just constantly be pumping this beer out into the world. That's 9%, not for everybody, but you can get it just about anywhere. I walked into the first place that I thought would have it and they had it. So
same here. Just my local grocery store, no special grocery store at all. And they had it right there, and they always do. And you're right. It's a good point that this must be a pretty expensive beer to make. So, when you look at it and it's comparable price to the beers around it. In fact, mine was like 30% off today. I should have bought more, but my beer fridge is cram-packed and Lori would smack me. But yeah, it's got to be an expensive beer to make and just a commitment, but it's working for them.
Yeah, so all of you business-minded people out there watching this, if you're going to open up a brewery, don't start making these right away. Kind of work your way into it. I mean, this style of beer is it really meant for daily consumption after a long day of work? Some people do that. I mean, I've known people who crack open an Imperial Russian Stout every single day, but not everybody. That's a very small minority of people. And I definitely know the type of personality that gets into this kind of stuff. And they usually have beards and tattoos. But anyways, enough about my stereotyping. This kind of stuff is awesome to just give it a go. And I would say this is where you want to start, is with this beer from North Coast Brewing Company. It's been a while for me. I don't know how long it's been for you, but I haven't had this beer in, as the kids say, a hot second. So yeah, it's really fun to try this one again. And I can't believe I got to house this whole can. So
you got some work to do there, Lee. You know, no screwing around here.
It was all they had. It was all, I mean, they didn't have like a typical 12-ounce bottle. If they sold this in like 6-ounce little slim cans or something like that, no, let them do what they want to do. You know, have your fun, North Coast Brewing Company. If you ever find yourself in Fort Bragg, you really can't miss them. It's a tiny, beautiful town along the cliffs in Northern California. There's a lot of military presence there, so those dudes know how to drink. And they will definitely be happy to have you there and try some Old Rasputin. Get the barrel-aged one if you can get it. Get the rye whiskey barrel-aged one if you can somehow get lucky and locate that, because it tastes absolutely phenomenal. I used to work with a guy who worked for North Coast Brewing Company, and this is a heavily guarded secret recipe. Like, you can't really crack the code. I mean, I showed him like 10 different homebrew clones of this, and he's like, yeah, none of those are really spot on, but they're kind of close. And I was like, oh, really? So what are they missing? And he's like, there's some NDAs involved I can't really say. And I was like, wow.
I bet,
okay.
yeah. So a recipe like that, you want to keep it tight, I think. Yeah, Lori and I stopped by this brewery years ago. We were on a road trip down the California coast, and I saw their brewery. It's like, nope, we're going there, man. There's no way we're not. And it was definitely worth it. I didn't have an Old Rasputin at the time because I was driving, but it sure was great to stop by there and see the place. So it was pretty neat. So I'd go again for sure.
Yeah, and the one last thing I kind of want to tell people that unlike most beer out there, this style of beer, and especially this one in particular, you can actually age it like a bottle of wine. You can stick it in a cold, dark place for a couple of years and just kind of see how it develops. I mean, if you drink it straight out of the can within like the first like 6 months of its life, it's going to be kind of bitter and hoppy and really aromatic. But if you let it hang out for a few years, it starts turning into this like caramelly, chocolatey, kind of sherry-like substance. It's really delicious. I mean, even like in a can, I can imagine that still be pretty awesome. But this is the kind of beer that you can really develop a beer cellar off of.
That's right. Yeah, I've got a crawl space in my house. It's got a bunch of big old stouts and porters and a couple barley wines in there, and every once in a while I'll go pull one out. It's like, oh, this one's been in here 8 years. Let's give it a try, and it's always good. It's always interesting. The hop flavors kind of start to recede, and those big, a little bit oxidization flavors of sherry and fruit and stuff really start to come out, and it's fun. It's nice. I really enjoy doing that. I put a barley wine in there when my little sister had her son, and I'm going to try and. I read about this tradition where you wait 20 years and have it with them on their 20th birthday, and so I'm trying. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to make it.
Yes, probably one of the only noble causes of 21-year-old drinking traditions out there. I mean, I was not into this stuff right away when I turned 21 or 22. It took me a few years, but I got really into them. And then I think once I hit like 27, 28, I'm 34 now, but you kind of take a step back and start to just enjoy them on like a more infrequent level.
On an occasional basis, yeah.
Yeah, and I worked at a brewery that was known for this kind of stuff. So we made this stuff all the time, and I was constantly surrounded by it. So when you're inundated with variations and different adjuncts and different barrel treatments, you kind of lose sight of like what this beer is really all about. And this kind of is a good reminder of like where it came from and how it's endured for like a century and a half. And yeah, I think it's really fun to drink, man. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is a top-notch beer. Thanks for suggesting it. I've got 4 of them now. Well, I've got 3 of them now. Maybe a couple of them will go in that cellar and see how long they can last in there. See what they do.
Yeah, and I guess all of you recipe-oriented people, if you don't want to house an entire 60-ounce can like me, you can easily kind of use this as a braising liquid. You can reduce it and mix it into a barbecue sauce. You can substitute this for some of the liquids that you would use in a cake batter or a brownie batter or something like that. Don't use it to make bread, though, because the high alcohol content will not allow you to make gluten, so you don't really want to try that. I've definitely made a few bricks that way when I was experimenting with beer bread recipes. But yeah,
nice.
Super, super fun, versatile beer to drink. Lends itself to all sorts of different directions. It really is a fun special occasion thing to crack open. And you know what? If you are brave enough to tackle this style of beer, this is the one that you're probably going to encounter first, and it's totally worth it. So
Definitely. I'm so glad that, well, I've been turned on to this for a long time, and I'm just glad that they still have it and you can still just get it right down the street. So
yeah. And if there's anybody out there who's really into wine or really into whiskey, think of this as like your Cabernet Sauvignon of beer, or like your American rye. You know, this is big, bold, aggressive stuff going on in here. So if your tastes tend to float that way, you would probably enjoy this. You know, this is kind of where I think this is your city. This is your realm right here. You know, so yeah, get into these things, man. I don't really know what else to talk about with this thing, but we covered a lot of ground here with just one beer. We can save it for another day to talk about all the crazy directions that this style of beer has been taken.
Yeah, let's have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us. Lee, thanks for suggesting this delicious beer.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us on the Tap Brewcast. If you like this kind of content, give us a like, maybe even a subscribe, and check on us later with Gravity Beverage. So cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Oh, man, I just chugged that.